What is Valheim? Valheim is quite simply epic. But what is Valheim? Well, if you don't know, and if you're not playing Valheim, you absolutely should be. Valheim is made by Iron Gate AB, who are an independent Swedish game developer. Iron Gate teamed up with Coffee Stain Studios, who made Goat Simulator, if you didn't know that, and together they released Valheim. Also, bear in mind, Valheim is Iron Gate's project, and it is their first game ever. So, the core of Valheim is made by Iron Gate. I should also let you know that Valheim is only available on PC. But let's talk about the game. Valheim is a third-person open-world survival game. It is inspired by Viking culture and Nordic mythology, in case you hadn't gathered by the name of the game. Whether or not you've played survival games in the past, or building games, or fighting games, or RPG games, none of it matters. Valheim is everything that you've ever wanted in a game. It sits currently in a league of its own, and it is most definitely superb in almost every way. I say almost because, believe it or not, Valheim is still in early access. That's right, this incredible, epic masterpiece of a game isn't even fully released yet, but it is already deemed as the best survival game of all time, and one of the best games ever by a lot of players. And it's only been available on Steam since the 2nd of February, and has already sold more than 2 million copies. And despite it only being out since the 2nd of February, it's already the third most played game in 2021 on Steam, only behind CSGO and Dota 2, which is absolute insanity, especially for an early access game. You can purchase the early access license for $20 or £15, which is again insane for a game of this caliber. Now, Valheim is already tipped to win Game of the Year in 21, and I would be very surprised if it doesn't. I just think it's so funny how such a simple game with such simple mechanics and such a simple concept at a time of next-gen gaming just shows up out of nowhere and literally wipes the floor with AAA games. It goes to show that it is not all about pouring millions and millions into trying to make games that look like real life. In all honesty, Valheim is most likely the best game I've played since probably Mass Effect. In fact, I think if I compare it like for like, Valheim probably wins hands down. And I am trying to think of better game experiences that I've had in the past, but I am really struggling to come up with anything so far. Obviously, the game isn't 100% perfect, but it's pretty damn close. Not to mention, and just to prepare you, because, this is just another insane fact, Valheim is only 1 gigabyte in size. Yeah, you heard that right. The maps are procedurally generated, which means it's randomly seeded each time you go into a new map. This alone allows the game to be much smaller when compared to the majority of games. Obviously, the 3D artistic graphics also give it a little bit of a help. So inside each of the maps, there are 7 different biomes. You've got the meadows, the black forest, the swamp, the mountains, the plains, the ocean, and the mistlands. They're all different to each other and have different ecosystems, different dungeon types, different caves, ultimately different bosses, and many more things and secrets. I'm sort of trying to not give too much away here, as I wouldn't really want to spoil your experience. Anyway, I've played around 50 hours, maybe 60, and I've only really been able to get past the first boss. It completely feels like I've barely scratched the surface. One of the problems is that the building in this game is so good and satisfying and addictive that out of these 50 or 60 hours, I've probably spent half of it building stuff. It's really easy to get lost in just building epic bases. You can find just the most amazing structures that players have built by just searching on YouTube for Valheim buildings and stuff. It's incredible. Now, when you first start, you obviously have to create your character, which is of course a Viking character, or you can create multiple characters. But if you're playing solo, you'll just be dropped into one of the random generated maps, and you begin your quest to go through every biome, every era, and kill every boss in the game. But the most amazing thing with Valheim is the co-op. You can basically have up to 10 players in one single map, and you can journey through it together. Obviously, that would make progression much easier. You can also turn PvP on, and you can just fight each other. But really, I'm still struggling and trying to grasp how it's even possible to create such an incredible game that's this simple and basic. Everything just works so well. Now, obviously, there are areas where it could improve, and apparently, there are still some bugs to tackle. Now, I haven't seen any bugs. I had one single freeze crash, and that's it. I mean, there is also an issue with optimization in the game right now, but you know, it's an early access game, so that's not really abnormal. I'm on a mid to high gaming rig, and I can still run it at medium settings, and I get an average of around 80 frames per second. But people with older systems are really struggling, with some players reporting below 10 frames per second on the lower settings. I mean, at the end of the day, obviously Valheim will be optimized through patching, and everything will be just fine in that respect. There is also another issue that the devs have been very open about, which is a world killer bug, or whatever they call it, where for whatever reason, the game deletes all of your progress, and you basically lose your characters, your gear, your maps, everything gets wiped apparently. But talking of areas that could use improvements, I would say the combat, definitely the combat. Now, Valheim primarily is a survival building game, so whilst combat is important and a big part of the game, it isn't the main focus, and therefore is quite basic. But the blocking, which is a big part of the combat in Valheim, allows the mechanics to feel a little bit more varied and fluid. Dodging helps too, and there's a ton of different weapons to use, which also adds depth to the combat. With all that said, improvements to combat mechanics would most definitely be welcome, and it would help the game tremendously. But Valheim, in terms of the combat, to give you an idea, it feels a lot like Dark Souls, basically. I think at the end of the day, Valheim is here to stay. It'll be just like Minecraft and Roblox and Fortnite and a few others. Popularity will continue to rise, the game will continue to improve, and we're all gonna live happily ever after playing Valheim. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Goodbye.